Ancient southern Arabia has, since time immemorial, been a land inhabited by humans. The lands of what is modern-day Oman and Yemen have had people walking upon them since the dawn of human history, since the dawn of mankind in fact. As early hunter-gatherers from Eastern Africa, the birthplace of mankind, arrived on southern Arabia, either through crossing the Red Sea on rafts or by managing to walk to various islands in between during low tide, or by traveling north and then down south to the Arabic Peninsula once again. In either case, the oldest members of humankind inhabited the ancient lands of southern Arabia and left the remnants magnificent paintings that are found in more than a dozen sites in southern Arabia, dating to several thousands, tens of thousands of years before Christ. These early hunter-gatherers did not only make art do, as we also have an example of one of the earliest examples of an extensive trade or trade network, more specifically weapon trade of Stone Age weapons. As we know that in Arabia during the earliest days of the Neolithic period, the sources of obsidian found in Jaffa, located in the western highland plains of Yemen, provided most of the obsidian used in various Stone Age weapons across the highlands, but also at a longer distance, with the material reaching the largest distances towards the eastern interior and to the north, even up to what is modern-day Israel and Palestine, and to the east, to the areas of modern-day Kuwait and Iraq, and also across the sea, to various areas in Eastern Africa. And the amount of findings of Yemeni obsidian in all of these areas, of obsidian having the same contents as the obsidian found in Yemen, shows that these weren't just the cases of singular individuals taking some obsidian from Yemen and then walking away or traveling, but rather a result of a larger trade network. This obsidian trade was maybe one of the earliest examples of the Ethiopic-Yemeni-Indian triangle trade that would later develop into a truly massive trade network. Southern Arabia was also home to some of the earliest civilizations on Earth. For example, the Kehayu fisher village on the coast of Yemen is more than 7,000 years old, and probably only slightly younger than the Göbekli Tepe, which dates back to at least 9,500 years of age in what is modern-day Turkey, and is considered the first true evidence of a settled civilization. But the Kehayu village is not that far after. You also have this 7,000-year-old ruins of a tomb in Oman in the Al-Wusta province. And you have the Jabal al-Alouya settlement from 6,000 years ago, and in the Al-Batina North Governorate you can find the ruins of a 5,000-year-old site with stone buildings and a tomb that was found with silver jewelry, showing that ancient southern Arabia had already developed metallurgy of the precious metals at a rather early age, a couple of thousands of years before the Bronze Age. And in Al-Mudaibi in Oman, you have also ruins that date back at least 5,000 years, but might be even older. So you have plenty of examples of civilization before the Bronze Age in southern Arabia. And civilization would continue into the Bronze Age and flourish. For example, you have the Anar, Mother of the Fire civilization, that is a Bronze Age culture that existed around 2,600 years to 2,000 years before Christ in the area of modern-day the United Arab Emirates and northern Oman. The name derives from the same named island. And between 2500 and 2000 BC, this island was home to a relatively large settlement that played an active role in regional commerce, and artifacts showed that people on the island traded with civilizations as far away as ancient Mesopotamia in modern-day Iraq and the Indus Valley civilization in modern-day Pakistan and India, being an early example of the Ethiopic Yemeni Indian triangle trade, but this time now involving India and eastern southern Arabia. And this was just one of several cultures and civilizations that existed in Bronze Age in southern Arabia. As to the western parts of the southern Arabic Peninsula, you had probably early Proto-South Semitic peoples, such as the earliest examples of probably Sabaean culture date back from the middle of the Bronze Age. And these people and others on the southern parts of the Arabic Peninsula had written inscriptions, though not in large quantities, but also, unlike later Sabaic inscriptions that are based upon a script ultimately developed from the Phoenicians, which is sound-based. These scripts were pictographic and we have not yet cracked them. Though around the end of the second millennium BC, you begin to get scripts that are decipherable and thus understandable. And this lack of understanding before we get these decipherable scripts is one of the reasons as to why we don't know that much about the civilizations found in southern Arabia, despite the fact that they were the equal in time and in richness and in cultural advancements to what was existing on the Anatolian Peninsula, in Mesopotamia and in Egypt in many ways. And these people had probably had just as a long history of civilization as those mentioned places. And these peoples also had contacts with the rest of the world, as we have discovered Mesopotamian objects and even objects from the Indus Valley civilization in various Bronze Age settlements on the southern Arabic Peninsula. One of the reasons as for why civilization could develop so early and be the equal of these other places that I have mentioned has to do with the fact that southern Arabia has a very rich countryside that is green. Yes, I'm not kidding. Southern Arabia actually has a lot of land that is quite green and fertile and can easily be used for agriculture and has been used for agriculture from an early age with relatively advanced techniques of water irrigation, with water coming from the mountains, from the southern Arabian mountains down in various rivers that were harnessed to better improve agriculture from a very early age, with various dams and artificial canals that would provide the water that was needed to give bountiful harvests. A later example of this, though mainly built in the early Iron Age in the 8th century BC, the Marib Dam is probably the most extreme and largest example of these dams ever built, and considered one of the ancient wonders of the past in Arabic traditions, and according to me the equal of the 7 ancient wonders of the past by any definition, and considered today also a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. I could make an entire video about this dam, which I plan to do in the future, but for now I will continue on to speak about something that is connected to the same time period as this dam, that is to say, the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age.
With the Bronze Age collapse, a general collapse of civilization, in the whole Near East, from Greece to India and everything in between, civilizations collapsed, and that occurred at the end of the Bronze Age.
We are still not entirely sure of all the reasons for its happening, and why so many civilizations collapsed at the same time, all around most of the civilized, settled world. But in any case, it seems to have been particularly brutal to southern Arabia, and various civilizations did not arise again until much later, several hundreds of years after the events of the Bronze Age collapse. Though a couple of hundreds of years later, we do see various kingdoms such as Saba, Ma'in, Qataban, Hadramaut, the kingdom of Awsan and the Himyarite kingdoms appear, which appeared around 1000 BC and somewhat later. So eventually there was a recovery, though it was slow. And these various kingdoms and peoples might have descended from the original Bronze Age inhabitants of the area. Though questions remain if the old South Arabian civilizations were direct continuations from the Bronze Age, or in the beginning of the Iron Age, groups of people began to wander south from the north of Arabia, or west from eastern Africa. The rather different linguistics of the Semitic languages spoken in southern Arabia can be a possible indication, as they are South Semitic languages and not Central Semitic languages like Arabic, and thus closer to various languages found in Ethiopia than with what is modern day Standard Arabic. But these languages also have a lot of Central Semitic influences, and these languages, they seem to actually have been the development of local peoples. But certain legends regarding the legendary figure Khtan or Yuqtan and his people having moved south and taken over southern Arabia exist, and various genetic studies on skeletons and now living people show some sort of migration having happened into the area, but also that most of the people remain the same, but this varies from area to area. And these are things that kind of complicate this issue regarding the continuation of previous Bronze Age and Stone Age civilizations continuing into the Iron Age or re-emerging. It also doesn't help that the writing systems are entirely different, so we can't decipher the older Bronze Age and Stone Age inscriptions in order to prove a link between the Stone Age and Bronze Age peoples and the later Iron Age peoples of southern Arabia. And this is important because culture and languages, the things that define a people, can get replaced much more quicker and easily than genetics due to migrations. And it can happen even without large-scale migrations. Thus, even in the cases where the people genetically are the same with the Bronze Age people, that does not mean that the Iron Age people were the same people. And the links between Bronze Age and Iron Age peoples in southern Arabia may be tenuous at best. They are at the very least very obscure at the moment. And that was ancient, southern, Stone Age and Bronze Age Arabia. And I hope you found this short video fascinating. Please post questions and comments. I would love to see them and reply to them. Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities.
اشتركوا بالقناة المفضلة.